Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'll be reacting to another Chilling Scares video for you guys. And the one I'll be reacting to is 3 scary, true middle school horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the lights off and let's get this show on the road and this reaction in the bag. Alrighty, here we go. That noise already makes the story scary already.
When I was in middle school, I was a pretty shy kid. It was the Friday before spring break, and I was pretty excited for it, as my parents were allowing my best friend to stay over for the weekend.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Honestly, it was all I could think about the whole day. Now, it's important to note that I would never ride the bus to or from school. My parents were pretty protective, and despite living in a relatively friendly neighborhood, they were never keen on the idea of me taking a bus or even just walking home. I didn't mind, but of course, that meant that one of my parents would have to pick me up each day.
Yeah, I was like that going through school myself. Back in elementary school, I would get dropped off by my mom or dad or one of my other family members. And when I leave school, I got picked up on the bus. Now, it all changed when I went to middle school and high school because my aunt said that she could pick both me and my cousin up because we were going to the same middle school and high school. So I didn't have to get on the bus. But anyway, let's continue.
And each time they did, the school would have whoever was picking me up give them their signature for the school's records. This meant that for me to leave the school, I would need that signature. This day specifically, my aunt and uncle were supposed to pick me up from school, as both my parents were working late. But by the time the bell rang, I could tell neither my aunt's or my uncle's car were anywhere in the parking lot. I waited for a good 45 minutes, slowly watching as the parking lot got less and less busy. By this point, almost empty. I was the only one in the lobby at this point, and was starting to get nervous that they forgot to pick me up. I decided it was best to walk down to the office and inform someone of the situation.
Sometimes that happened to me too. Be like, our ride ain't here yet. They're like a little late, but eventually they'll show up. We didn't even have to go to the office, but sometimes it did happen like that. And I had to call somebody to get us.
But as I did, I saw some random guy, I'd say maybe mid-40s, with a duffel bag walk in the building. I met eyes with him, but quickly looked back down at the floor, continuing towards the office. When I got there, I told this lady everything. She sat me down in her office. I gave her my aunt and uncle's phone number, and she tried calling them. But, of course, they didn't answer. I then gave her my dad's phone number, and luckily he did answer. He informed the lady that either my aunt or uncle should have been there by now. He told her he would try calling them, as he couldn't get off work for a couple hours. By this point, it had been around an hour and a half since the school got out, and I, of course, was on edge. The whole situation was stressful, as I knew I was keeping this lady from going home, and I could tell she was losing her patience. I was literally the last kid in the building. Around 5 minutes later, and nothing had come of the situation yet. But just then, a man in a janitor's uniform walked into the office. I could instantly tell it was the same man with the duffel bag that I'd seen on my way to the office. Now in a janitor's uniform. He started talking with the office lady. I remember this part clearly. The man eventually asked what she was still doing at the school, and she proceeded to explain our whole situation. The man then looked at me and told me he lived right next to my aunt and uncle's house, and that he was willing to give me a ride on his way back home. At that point, 2 red flags were going off in my head. Firstly, if I had just seen this guy entering the building only a few minutes ago, why would he already be leaving to go home? And secondly, there's no way he could have even known where my aunt and uncle lived, as that information was never given anywhere in the conversation. But my thoughts were interrupted by the office lady explaining that it was a great idea. I could literally see the relief in her eyes as she would no longer have to wait for my ride to show up. Not even 2 seconds later, the guy, before I could even say anything in response, grabbed my hand and started practically dragging me towards the front door.
Lady, you stupid. He don't even know her. You should have just hold your horses and wait until one of his actual relatives showed up. Jeez. Now all she cared about was leaving. She didn't want to babysit.
I expected the office lady to say something, but as I glanced back at her, I could tell she wasn't going to do anything.
No.
But by some stroke of luck, as I was being pulled out the front door, I could see my uncle's car pulling into the parking lot.
Oh, thank God.
I screamed that my uncle was here, and the guy froze for a second. But as my uncle got closer, he let go and started speed walking in the opposite direction. Apparently, the reason my uncle was so late was because of some terrible traffic accident. And at the time, he didn't even have a cell phone, so there was no way he could have called the school to inform them. When I got in the car with my uncle, he proceeded to ask me who the guy was that was holding on to me, and I explained everything. He, of course, was shocked, and quickly reported the situation to the school. I never saw either that lady or the janitor ever again, so I don't know if they were fired or what. Though, I actually have a theory that the guy was never a real janitor for the school, as what janitor would enter the school in regular clothes and leave only minutes after he got there?
Yeah.
Either way, though, the whole thing was really traumatizing for me, and it still haunts me to this day.
Yeah, that lady probably got fired after the uncle told his story about what his nephew had to go through. And as for the janitor guy, he probably won't leave a janitor like he said. He was probably a stalker or kidnapper, and he just figured, everybody's leaving, he can grab somebody. Disguised as a janitor, of course. But, yeah, nobody would go to work, put on a janitor uniform, and say he can leave and take you somewhere. No, he was probably going to kidnap you or do God knows what with you. I don't know what he was going to do. But, yeah, I'm glad that lady got fired, hopefully, because you should have known the red flags, lady. The boy did not know that guy, and you just trust him out of the blue since he's wearing the janitor uniform? No. All you cared about was just leaving. And office personnel of the school should listen to the student and be like, if they don't know him, they don't know him. Anyway, let's get to story number 2.
It was the last week of school. I was in middle school, and I remember you could feel the tension as everyone knew summer break was almost here. With that in mind, a lot of my friends and I were messing around, as realistically there was nothing to do the last week. Anyway, I remember toward the end of the day, I was in my last class, which was gym. Somewhere during that time, I got thirsty and needed to use the water fountain. Now, our school was really old, so if you needed to use the water fountain, the only ones that worked were near the main entrance to the school. As I was heading there, I realized how quiet it had gotten. Usually, during the school day, when you're walking through the halls, you would be able to hear teachers from the classrooms.
Right.
I thought it was weird, but my thoughts were interrupted by a kid that looked to be in an older grade speed walking down the hall toward the other end of the school. He had no backpack on, and I couldn't help but notice the look on his face. He looked angry and had one hand in his pocket with the other holding up his sagging pants. I thought he was walking towards me at first, but he walked right past me. I thought it was weird, but ignored it, thinking maybe the kid was just late for class and wanted to get there quick. Finally, I got to the drinking fountain, but right as I started drinking, I could hear a loud pop. I instantly shot up in reaction, listening intently. At first, it sounded like somebody slamming their fist against a locker, but when a few seconds passed and more pops sounded...
No, it could be that student carrying a gun in his pocket. And he probably wasn't even a student, he probably just barged in, aiming to kill somebody and get out.
I knew what the sound was. Somebody was shooting a gun. I instantly ran inside the bathroom to my left, turned off the light, and hid inside one of the stalls. I cannot express to you how fast and loud my heart was beating in that moment. Eventually, all of a sudden, our principal got on the intercom and started telling everyone to get inside and lock the doors. But I figured staying in the bathroom was my best shot at getting out of this alive. For the next solid 10 minutes, I would periodically hear running footsteps outside in the hallway. I didn't know if they were students or if it was the shooter himself. At one point, I could even hear the bathroom door open, just to hear it close again with footsteps running in the opposite direction. Finally, a teacher opened the door and called out to see if anyone was inside. And recognizing the voice, I answered. I've never been more terrified for my own safety than I was on that day. The school ended up locking us down for over an hour until we were finally escorted onto a bus to take us home. Looking out the windows, I remember seeing pure chaos. Police were everywhere. Parents were trying to get inside the building and find their kids. Kids who were walking home were now running. All in all, not a pleasant sight to see.
Probably not.
All of the kids on the bus couldn't stop talking about it, but all I could do was sit there and think. I had seen the guy. He walked right past me. Later that night, while watching the news, it was confirmed. That same student I saw walk past me in the hallway was clearly visible on the TV. The headline read that 2 students were injured. To this day, the kid's motives were never made clear to me. I also don't know why the kid didn't even take notice to me in the hallway. But whatever the reason, I'm glad he didn't.
I don't know. He probably was jealous at them 2 students or something. You never know what's going to happen. A student mad with another student, and they start shooting up the place. Who knows? And plus, I don't know why that kid did not tell the teacher that found him that he might have saw the guy. But then he probably hold him back to talk to a police officer to tell him his story. But anyway, I'm glad he came out there unharmed, like shot-wise, Yeah, I'm surprised that other kid did not even, notice him. He was just running after some other people. But anyway, let's get to story number 3.
Back when I was in middle school, I was in band. I played the clarinet. I always wanted to play the saxophone, but my grandpa had a clarinet, so that's what I ended up playing. If I'm being honest, I wasn't good at all. And because of this, I had to take extra lessons after school just to keep...
Hey, back in elementary school, we had to take music class. I mean, I wasn't good on the recorder. But, yeah, you ain't the only one, kid.
keep up with everyone else. The band instructor was a middle-aged man named Mr. Hall. After a while, noticing I was falling behind, Mr. Hall himself started offering me extra lessons at his house. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the idea of taking lessons at my middle school teacher's house made me uncomfortable, and I refused. He was pretty persistent though, and would offer at least once a week, to which each time I would again refuse. It was starting to get pretty disturbing, and I mean, especially as a middle school kid, you shouldn't have to continually tell your teacher no.
Yeah.
Anyway, one day, Mr. Hall announced that our school had been invited to perform at a Christmas concert downtown.
Well, that sounds nice.
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of us were pretty excited. We all had extra rehearsals, and the school made sure we had everything we needed. Fast forward to the day of the concert, and we all met at our designated area. As we got dropped off, Mr. Hall told all the parents where to pick us up once the concert was over. Finally, the concert started, and quite honestly, it went a lot smoother than I had originally thought it would. At the end, everyone had their parents pick them up, and after a few minutes, I was the last one waiting, which meant I was now left alone with Mr. Hall. Not even a minute later, out of nowhere, Mr. Hall immediately grabbed my hand and told me I could just call my mom from his house.
No!
He proceeded to practically sprint towards the parking lot, with me not far behind, still in his grip. Now, I had very little experience being on my own, and didn't know how to act in this kind of situation, so despite everything in me wanting to stop, I went along. I couldn't tell you exactly where he took me, but it was definitely further out than where everyone else was parked. Finally, his car came into view in a pretty shady area. It was one of those dark blue SUVs. Just then, I could hear my name being yelled from behind me. I turned to see my mom, panting and sprinting towards us. To my surprise, Mr. Hall's grip tightened on my wrist in reaction, and he even began to sprint faster. That's when my suspicion of something not being right was confirmed. I started to tug back, and finally Mr. Hall gave it up by letting me go and continuing towards his car. My mom finally caught up to me, but I still couldn't process what just happened. I'd never seen Mr. Hall act so aggressively before. My mom must have reported the whole situation, as I never saw Mr. Hall in school again. In fact, I've never heard anything about him since. Now that I'm older, I'm fully aware of the danger I was in, but I still don't like to think about what would have happened had I gotten into his car that night.
Way to go, Mama, for the rescue. But, yeah, you should have known if he's grabbing you like that, he's probably going to be kidnapping you. And I don't know what he was planning on doing with that boy, and I do not want to know. But I am glad that his mom did report him to the school and stuff. So he probably got, one, fired, and two, he either got arrested or he moved. But I hope another school does not hire him because of that incident. But anyway, that's going to be it for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more chill and scares content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Have a nice day, buddy.